Like, I don't think Bryce Young is obviously that much better a prospect. I think his tape is better than college Justin Fields. On the other hand, he's like 5'10", 175. So that scares me. I don't know how much it scares me, but it scares me enough that I'm not like Kyler Murray, Josh Rosening this thing. I'm not like he's so much better than Fields. It's a no-brainer. He isn't. Like, he might be better, and I think his tape is better. It's like Rick Spielman said. If he was 6'2", 220, I think I would move. But he isn't. He's 5'10", maybe 180. And that, it's just enough that I'm scared enough by it that I'm going to lean with Fields and say, all right, he did enough last year that I want to see what he can do with everything put around him.
There were statements like that made about Russell Wilson when he came out back in 2012. If he's 6'2" instead of 5'10", he's the number one overall pick.
And by the way, Russell Wilson is probably going to outweigh Bryce Young by 30-plus pounds.
Oh, yeah, he's got a thick.
That's the thing. It's
thick.
It's the composite of short and tiny, which shouldn't make a difference, but just because it's unprecedented, it should. Like, it's like Devontae Smith, right? We know that being a small wide receiver doesn't really matter in the greater scheme of things, but if you're going to show up with a number like 166, like, it's so extreme that you have to at least think, I mean, does that make a little bit of a difference? Because, I mean, even just on the same team, right? The difference between Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, like that 50 pounds or whatever the hell that is, it does make a difference. The question is how much.
All right, so let's get into this from a Colts perspective. So the Bears have traded out, and they've traded back to number 4. I don't know if did he even detail the actual trade?
No.
I don't think he got into the Jimmy Johnson chart and let you know, but we'll assume the Bears get a pretty good haul here, including the number 4 overall pick. So the Colts are the team to move up to number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the most likely team to come to number 1? The other candidates are the Texans at 2, maybe the Panthers at 9, the Raiders at 7.
Actually, he did ballpark the trade.
He did ballpark.
Number 4, a second rounder, a 5th rounder, and maybe an additional first next year.
Oh, wow. That's
quite a big maybe. I mean,
yeah, it feels like
it's quite a large
like
part of that.
So are the Colts the most likely team?
Yes.
I agree. I think they are the most likely team to move up to number 1. And is Bryce Young the guy that, let's be serious here, is this Chris Ballard's pick or is this Jim Irsay's pick? Who's the guy most likely to tickle Jim Irsay's fancy?
It's funny because the concern that you have, or that I have, Bryce Young's size, it's kind of like the Mac Jones thing when the 49ers are trading up, right? If you're going to trade up, the extra capital that you're giving up, the sort of the downside, I think scares you more. So I could see Mac at the time. I could see Mac Jones being plugged into that 49ers offense and doing an amazing job. But it's like, but is it worth 3 first-round picks? No, not really. So now you're like, all right, I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft. I think he has clearly the best tape of any of these quarterbacks. So therefore, he's the best quarterback. But I'm pretty comfortable making that declaration just at number 1 overall. Period. The end. Move on. But now you say, okay, but what if it costs you an extra second rounder, a first rounder next year, and a 5th round pick this year? Are you still that confident? Well, now I'm like, God, but he is really small. You know what I mean? It just scares me even more the more you sort of roll into the deal and have to gamble on it.
Why should we be concerned about height, right? Because even Rick mentioned durability. I think even though we've poo-pooed the durability thing before, right, that it's not just about 6'5", 230 equals durable, there is something to it, right?
Well, so
is it just the fact that we haven't seen it?
That the biggest fear is it's unprecedented. Now, where I think Young is different is, so number 1, we've talked before about size is not necessarily a durability thing. It's a play style thing, right? Like if he protects himself, it doesn't really matter that he's small. He does protect himself. So I think he's better at avoiding hits than a lot of quarterbacks. Therefore, I'm not massively concerned by that. Now, Tua this year showed the potential flip side of that, which is, all right, even if he protects himself, at some point, a guy that weighs 330 pounds is going to get their hands on him and simply throw him to the ground like a sack of potatoes. And when that happens, when you're outweighed by that much, you simply are no longer in control over what happens to your body once it flies into the turf. You know what I mean? And Tua probably outweighs Bryce Young by 20 pounds, you know?
And we talked to him a lot the first 2 years, how small Tua felt.
Right. So again, we're talking like just unprecedented size problems. The second issue is the height thing, which is, look, quarterbacks that are that short have restrictions that taller quarterbacks simply don't have. Now, it's not as simple as you can't see through the pocket when you're that size, because nobody can see through the pocket, right? Even 6'5" quarterbacks are standing behind guys that are generally 6'5", in addition to defensive linemen that are 6'5". Like, there's not, it's not a simple line of sight that because you're 6'5", you can see over everything, because the guys in front of you are the same size. So everybody's working through lanes of vision. But it does mean that you have a harder time generally seeing the middle of the field 15 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, which is where a lot of the NFL passes and pass concepts target. So generally speaking, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, these guys do not work the middle of the field as efficiently as other quarterbacks do. So they have to offset that with other things. And Russell Wilson has had his own unique way of doing that. Kyler Murray has had his own unique way of doing that. Now, the problem is that in recent seasons, that has been less effective than it used to be. So again, now you're saying, okay, and now you're saying, well, you get this guy that's unprecedented small, maybe he gets banged up more because of it, and is as short as any quarterback that's come into the league in years. Can he work the middle of the field as well, and can he stay durable? Now, Bryce Young has worked the middle of the field very well at Alabama, but as we know, Alabama's offense is basically not a real thing. It's like it's fake. It's like a Madden offense. It's not like for like. So again, it's
less
just
so
like,
this year though.
Yeah, it's been the worst version of this Alabama offense for quite a number of years. It's still absurd. Like, they still run concepts that don't exist in the NFL because they can. So it's just the unknown. We've never seen this work before. Doesn't mean it can't, but it just, because that unknown thing has to scare you the more you commit to it.
I liked everything about, I mean, we could do a show where we rank the quarterbacks and get into their skill sets and all that stuff, but I loved how Bryce Young was competitive, led comebacks in close games, more so in his Heisman season. The Tennessee game this year where their defense was terrible, he kept coming back against Tennessee. Was just, he took hits, right? We talk about the hits, and he was tough though. Like, he stands in there, he moves the pocket with a purpose. One thing that's going to drive me nuts during draft season here is when, and I say people loosely, it might just be people in my mentions who don't know. It might be analysts. The people who say Bryce Young doesn't have a good arm because he's small. This happened with Baker Mayfield, right? There were actual analysts who said Baker Mayfield didn't have a good arm. He does. Bryce Young has a good arm. I described him. He's got that Mariota type release, I think, very quick and efficient, but with a better arm. I don't think Mariota, who did go number 2 overall, I never thought Mariota had a very good arm, like straight up velocity, but he had an incredible release to offset that. I love Bryce Young's release and think he has very good velocity, accuracy, the whole thing. So I think his arm's fine.
Yeah.
Arm talent, off
arm's good.
Off platform and all that stuff. Very good arm. So that's not the issue with the height. It's not a tools thing. It really is the just the outlier aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.